All right, what's up, guys? We're going to go over some pairs for the week of November 7th through 12th. This is Tyler, part of the Team Let's Eat group, owner of Wolves of Wall Street FX group. We got a couple pairs right here, a couple indices that we're going to go over. First is going to be the yen basket. So from a while ago, before the pound yen dumped and before this rose up, we were looking to take or to see the yen basket move up towards that 9100 level, which it did. And now that we're up here, I'm expecting to see some sort of rejection from it between these two levels here. So the top of this wick and this key level, which is last week's high, and it's basically 9100, just a few points off, but it's just marked for last week's high. Now, what I'm waiting for is just to see if, we come up here, and then if we can start making new lows, if we can break under like 90.70, right? So if I were to just put a line right here, you can see we had some sort of rejection. It got respected very well for a period of time, flipped it, respected, and now we've come up here. So I would like to see if price can get below this level, whether we come up here and make a week or a wick on the weekly and come down first, or if we just start moving down here right away. Either one, just waiting to see what happens. I would actually prefer to see it move up slightly first and then go down. I'll show you why for the pound yen. Now, the first area that we might see some support, if we do get that, is going to be 90.20. And the second level I'm really looking for is all the way back down here. So that's 89.50 basically, just under, but good clean psych level, 89.50. So it just all depends if we can get that pressure or not. Draw this level like that. So that's what I'm looking for with the yen basket. And how that'll translate over to the pound yen is buys. The reason why I would like to see the yen go up first is because that will help pull this down and make a nice wick. We go to the weekly. What I'm expecting is price to come down here and test the previous week's low, and possibly even test this week of October 11's low. Let me zoom into the 1 hour. As you can see right now, price is being squeezed. So I'm expecting, something along the lines of this to happen, and we can see, price come down and reject this level. And as long as we can reject this level, then on the 30-minute, once it starts making higher highs or a higher low, then we can start looking to enter. So basically, it would be nice to see price come down here. Even if it breaks below that, that'd be perfect. We come up here and we flip this level as a support, and then even if we dip back down here and reject, we can place an entry right here on the higher low, and we're going to take that to 155 basically. I'll tell you why. I'll show you why. We're gonna do it on the 1 hour actually. Let me get my pen out so I can draw on this. So starting at the left, what you can see here is a nice push down, and then we got a corrective structure, right? This is the pivotal point right here. And then same thing, we push down, we got a corrective structure, and we had this pivotal point right here, right? You see the distance between these two levels, and also right here where it pivoted. So price was moving up here, and then we pivoted, right? So the distance between these levels. Then what do we have? Same thing, price push down, corrective structure. Here's a pivotal point, right? We have this, and it's not even just a random pullback. It pulls back to this structure level. what I like to see is the same thing happen, but on a larger level here. So we're going to pull back all the way up here and at least test this area. Now, if we break this area, then we might be slingshotting up back to these highs. It all depends on what happens when we get to this area. Honestly, though, let me pull this back up actually, if it's going to work. I haven't used this pen in a while. Okay, maybe it just died. Nope, there we go. If we can take this back up here to this area, if we're going to switch and make the fly all the way up to 158, I think what we're going to do is pull back down to this area at first and continue that same sort of pattern, but on, going upwards now. So then we pull back here, pull back by this entry and then continue up exactly how this happened, but just in the other direction. See how we pulled back almost to like where you would enter right here. Same thing with this, right? This distance. I think we'll see that happening, moving to the upside if we can break this level. So for this week, the main focus here is going to be buys. And then depending on, how the week progresses and where we get to towards the end of the week, possibly even selling this week or wait for next week. It all depends on what type of pressure we get and if we can actually come all the way up here. Which pips wise, if we can get an entry between these two levels down here, that's going to be 230 pips to the upside. And even if we break this level and we test this high, that's more pips. But then if the sells is going to be, 120. And then if we make that higher low down here, and let me show you why we might make the higher low down here. But then we're looking at, hundreds of pips all the way back up. So the reason why I think we might fly all the way back up here, maybe not, next week or the week after, but we might, pull up here, pull back, and then kind of shoot up like that is because this structure right here, if I delete this level, actually, it might be a little bit easier to see. This squeeze, and then we impulse out, and then we pull back to these structure levels right here that was just marked up. That's a really common pattern that happens all the time across all time frames. You can go to the 10-minute, 1 hour, 4 hour, daily. It happens across all of them. What will typically happen next if we get that pressure and if the yen index starts to move down again, we're probably going to just make a large impulse move to the upside. If not, after this, then we come back down and we test this low. If it breaks that low, then we might be heading, back down into about 149 area. So it all depends on, what type of reaction we get from these highs and lows. After I use that pen, now my keyboard, like each key turns into a function. So now like when I press 1, it opens that. I keep forgetting. So you might see that stuff pop up. And it's not, I'm trying to click pound to Aussie and it's not opening. Let me try something real quick. Okay. I'm not using the pen again because that just made my computer glitch out. So real quick, actually, before we move on, let me get my key level out here. This is what I'm looking for at the beginning of the week for pound yen. Just looking for a dip below 152.6. As long as the structure changes right here and we don't just keep going down, we look for the structure change. We're going to place a buy entry to 155, and then from 155, start looking to take a possible sell. And that matches with the yen basket rejecting these levels around 9,100 essentially, and starting to move back to the downside. So let's go to pound Aussie. Pound Aussie has just been dumping for weeks, guys. I mean, since really up here, we had a nice pullback right here, but I mean, since the middle of August, pound Aussie has just been moving down. However, look at last week's weekly wick. It really tried to push all the way up here, and it almost did. Actually, this is supposed to be at that high right there, or the open this daily. So this week's going to be interesting. I think we are either going to come down here and test these lows of last week and turn, and then try to come reach for the highs and possibly even break the highs and go to this, the high of this previous day over here. Or it's just going to break this low and continue down again. Right, so there's two things that I can see with pound Aussie happening this week. I think this should be the open. Doesn't matter. That's around the same level. So to me, if we're going to turn, let me go on the 4-hour actually. This is the low of last week. This is the low of the week prior. I think what's going to happen is we will move down in between these levels, and just somewhere between these two levels, I'm going to be watching structure and seeing how it changes, right? Because where's my drawing tool? If we can come down here and then we start slowing down and the momentum starts shifting, that's how we know we're going to take the buy. And buy target is going to be last week's high, which is all the way up here. Oops, didn't click it. And again, also this is a second target, the weeks prior, 2 weeks prior, right? Yes. Which is a possible 200 to 300 pips. It just all depends on if we can hold these levels right here. I mean, already with what just happened? With open, I mean, spread is going to make some pretty sporadic movements here. You can see how that's just flicking. What's up? Yes, it's volatile. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, just throw them in the chat and I'll open it. So the reason why I'm waiting is because I would really like to see this week come down and try to attempt to go down to these lows. Because we all know how, when this kind of dumped, we came all the way back up close to the highs and then dumped. Smaller candle here, pulled up, dumped. Same with here, right? See how we came all the way down here, then all the way up and then back down. I want to see some sort of movement down here before we take the move to the upside. So just waiting. Dollar index on the daily. That's really all I'm going to try to look at just for the overall movement, and staying on the daily, maybe a little bit of the 4-hour. All right, let me break down the dollar index, and then we can look at US CAD. So from last week, we had 95 and 94.5 marked up. I deleted 95 for now because as we have approached 94.5, we started rejecting. In the past few days, it stalled, and then it came up here and tried pushing, and it got rejected, and then it dumped, and it actually broke these lows right here, 94.3 area. So I'm interested to see if we're going to have another push down towards 93.4 again. Now this would be the first area of support I would look for. Actually, is 93.8. But if we're going to push long-term down, we could be making a possible double top. It's actually a little bit more clean on the 4-hour, right? So triple top, really. Let me delete these. So it's possible that we see something like this and maybe even break that and start to head down here again. So with that being said, if this keeps pushing down and we don't see it come up and break these highs, then, we want to go to UCAD. We can go to US CAD first, but we'll be looking for pound USD buys. Once we get to these levels, then we're going to be looking for sells, but we'll get into that in a minute. What question did you have on US CAD? Oh, I can cover that. Here, let me just throw it on the list. All right, bet. That's good because we're gonna be going over AutoCAD too. So obviously US CAD is a little bit more tied to the dollar index, right? So essentially, if the dollar index is going to go down, that means the US dollar is weak, which would mean the US CAD would go down. But it also depends on the CAD too, obviously. So we'll get into that. With the pound USD first, though. So with expecting the dollar index to move down and reacting to if it does actually start to move down, then I will be looking to buy pound USD to 136. If it breaks 136, then the next target is 137. But before we do that, I would love to see price move down into last week's low, which is down here, and make a wick. We're getting this sort of inverted head and shoulders pattern that I'm sure we've all seen a lot. If you haven't, then you will. And the main thing is I really just want to see a nice wick into last week. We already have a tiny one, but we all know the spreads are huge right now. So honestly, the first hour doesn't really mean much to me. It's just sporadic movement. One of the 4-hour, we have what I marked is this 4 hours low, and then this structural level, which would be, like the head and shoulders pattern level. So I'd like to see price basically just come in here and then chop around. And then once it starts moving to the upside, we can get in the buys. The reason for 1.36 is a structural level right here. Plain and simple. It's also a psychological level, a very clean, even 1.36. So target number one, we're possibly turn down here and start heading to the downside. However, if we do break it, the next target would be there. But a majority of the trade will be closed here because that's 150 pips. This is just, hold partials. And then, unless we start setting up for the sell entry right here, then that's when you would close the buys fully and then enter sell. But we might have something similar to right here. So see how we stalled, dumped, kind of set up, then we pulled back, dumped. I think we're going to kind of set up again and then see that continue and then possibly, continue that to the downside. I think this drop right here, or possibly I'm going to put it in the middle. I think the drop right here will be if we can gain support on the Dow index right here. Right. So If we pull back a little bit this week and then dump on the dollar index, that would bring the buys up. And then if we find support right here, even if we come back into these levels or even a high again, that would bring that down. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens there. US CAD. So first, I'm marking the past week's high. And what's the range here? 120 pips. Last week's low. But then we have these structural lows right here. So just based off the fact that the dollar index might be turning over and getting bearish, I'm going to be looking for this to possibly move down. That's just in the back of my head while I'm looking at this. However, we'll see how price action matches up with that. So I marked the top of this week's high because there's always a chance that even if this weekly candle is going to be bearish, that we're going to come up here and spike above the previous week. So I just, that's why I have that marked. So as you can see, we actually got a lot of rejection right here and then huge bullish candle. It closed with a rejection towards the end of the day. Then Friday, we completely stalled and we made a doji candle. So now it's seeing what this candle does really. I would like to see, price come up and make that wick and test this high. I don't think it'll come all the way up here. This is honestly probably where like stop loss would be placed. If we can get an entry towards the top of this, that's a tight stop loss. Just 20 pips to 200 if we hit the low. Because the thing is, if we're going to turn right here, we're going to come test this low again because we're either going to continue this or we're going to make a double bottom. So that is why this will be the target if we do get the sell. Let's go to 30-minute structure. So we're kind of around this structural level right here. And we're seeing some sort of support from it, right? Because if we really zoom in real quick, let's look at what's going on here. So we have this low, and we push up, and we made this lower low. And now we pushed up again, and we've made that lower high, but we've also made a higher low. So on the 10-minute, that'll look like a squeeze. Right? I mean, it's not really the bottom, you don't really have to mark up, but I hope you guys can kind of get a visual of see how price is squeezing. So it would be nice to come up here and get a pop up here to make that wick possibly slightly above this. And then once we get this sort of, price action again, how we get an initial dump and then we pull back and make a lower high and then we start moving down again. Once we get that happening after that push up, then we start looking for the enter. So the structure change. So that is what I would look for in US CAD. On the flip side, same with pound USD. If this continues up, then we might just sell from here or around here. And this might continue upwards. There's always a flip side. So, I'm not ruling out that. But overall, I am looking for this move down, for this move up. This overall sell, but come up first. And odd CAD, I'm looking for a buy and a possible sell. Honestly, I really just play it on the smaller time frame. 4 hour. So real quick, let's look left, look over here. So we moved up, we dumped slightly, and then we slightly moved up, and then we started falling, and we pulled back to that structural level, and then we came down to these lows right here. Let's look at what's happening now. We moved up, moved down slightly, we crept up, and we pushed. And I think we're going to pull back up into these levels again. Similar, very, very similar to what's happening right here. Now, where would it be a good place to enter if we're going to do that? That's going to be this past week's low, which is this level right here. And then this low of the previous week. Also a structural level, structural support. You can see it's more of a zone. I could draw it a zone. So just between these levels, that's where, and that'll give, a good 100 something pips to the upside. Now, from there, it will either continue up to these highs, and if it's going to blast past this high, it's probably going to come all the way up here. I'll zoom out on the daily so you can see that better, but that structural high. So we're probably, if it does break this, this is the full target. Now, if we move up here and maybe we chop around a little bit and it stumbles and tries to break above these highs, but as it cannot, then we might be continuing down towards 0.912. So this is why that level is marked right there. Also, the reason why we might come all the way up here is I'm going to draw it with a zone this time and maybe 4 hours cleaner. We flipped this structural area and we've hit that right now. And looking at the daily, look how many days we've spent right here, right? We dumped, we're approaching the area, we stalled, got closer. Now we wicked into that area. Now I'm looking to see price come down into this area again, similar to, well, honestly, every trade, but similar to pound USD. I want to see it come down, wick into these levels. I want to see something similar happening, and it honestly already has. It's came down, probably about halfway if you measure the whole candle, but it's still within the first hour. I mean, look at that weird candle. So I'd like to see, clean candles come down here, and then we can look for some buy entries. Again, first target is going to be, around here, around 100 pips, 130 pips, depending where the entry is, but holding partials all the way to 0.942. And so these two trades, they do correlate. This correlates more with a dollar index, right? And this would correlate more with, what other CAD pairs there are. So CAD CHF has been moving down. CAD JPY has been moving down. Where is it? Pound CAD is moving down, and now we're getting that bullish pressure. And Euro CAD actually was slightly moving to the upside. So if these also start slightly moving to the upside, that'll show that the CAD may be having some strength, or weaknesses. And if these are moving to the downside, that'll also show the weakness as well. And you can correlate with odd pairs too. If odd pairs are moving up, that means odd is gaining strength as well. So just to run through, I don't know if Othmar or anyone else wanted to hop on and show indices. Looking for the basket to possibly move down back to 89.50, which would help bring the pound yen up to the 155, 156, and beyond. Looking for buys down here. Look at that open. We must have opened way down there. Right, so looking for the buys down there. Same with pound Aussie. Looking to see if we maintain this higher low right here to move up. And then from here, it depends on what happens. We could sell pound USD buys into these levels before selling, or higher. It depends what the dollar index does, if it breaks below this or not. Same with the US CAD. Pairing with the dollar index. If that dollar index continues to be weak, we may see this slowly move down. And then odd CAD, looking for the possible buys into these levels at least, and possibly the swing to 942. It depends on the odd strength and the CAD weakness. And then of course we got Ripple finding support at $1.12 like a stud. If anyone else wanted to hop on, let me know. Otherwise, I will end this and send pictures with text explaining the breakdowns in the chats. It's interesting to see that it opened all the way down here. I'm going to see if it did that in my broker too, because the whole reason of entering down here is so that this current week has a wick. But if it opens down here, that means it already has one. And what that means is that it doesn't need to come down here again. Cool. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll watch these. My eyes are going to be mainly focused on pound yen. Okay, I'm going to be tracking this thing like a hawk. This is definitely like the trade that I'm trying to focus on. Same with pound Aussie, it depends. And pound USD. Odd CAD is kind of like the backup trade. I love those pound pairs. I'm not trading gold this week, but I can analyze it if you want to. I'll tell you what's gonna happen right now. We're gonna hit 1834 and then we're gonna sell it. Easy. Done. That was the analysis. Last week, we got a really nice sell down here, and those NFP numbers mixed with this price action. I mean, look at that. It started dumping with the news. That's why we placed that sell, actually, is right after the news. But it just decided to not go down. However, I think we're going to. Oh, hold on, guys. Hold on. You see this? Explosive. See this pattern? Doesn't that look similar? These patterns, that's what I mean when I'm talking about flow. Yeah, I'm not trading gold this week, but I'm expecting it to hit 1834 relatively soon. Maybe this week, probably this week. And after once it hits 1834, I'm gonna look to sell it. But I'm not trading it this week. If it hits 1834 this week, like on Friday, that's that's the only way I'm gonna enter gold this week. Or we come down here and then we move to 1834. If we come down here, I will also enter, but I don't know if that'll be this week. Yeah, this gold chart is like super clean. I mean, literally, this is the trade right here. This is the analysis. Buy right here, or oops, or sell up here. But right now we're dead in the middle, so to me there's nothing to do. That's why I don't even have it on my watch list. I'll look at it later in the week to see if it's like when the market opens, it's either going to go up or down, obviously. But like Tuesday or Wednesday after it's moved down, I'm going to look, and if it's down here, I'll look to buy, and if it's up here, I'll look to sell, and then I'll share that with you guys. But we might see something like this right now. With gold, we might see a stall and then another push up. That's very likely. And, it's possible to buy, but like, I don't like, entering when it's in the middle, even when it's like that. I like entering on the ends. Like, we entered here, we entered here. A buy honestly would have been good here, but entry here. The other week, and we had an entry here, and we had an entry here. I don't. It's just with gold to me, it's sketchy. Like, and if you were to plus buy right here, and I mean, I just using it as example. I mean, obviously we were trying to sell here, especially with the good NFP numbers, and the dollar index was flying up, and this was flying up. I mean, it really, I was really expecting it to go down, but it is what it is. We just had, look at that. That was the news. That was that manipulation, and then it just took off. So unfortunate because we had this structure here. I'm gonna delete some of this crap. So we had this tap right here, and then this kind of creeping up structure. We wake above this high, and then we start dumping. That's total textbook stuff. Wick above that, we start moving down. This why I place entries when it got to 197, 196 area, and then the news hit, and then it started dumping, and then it just snapped up, took off like a friggin' rocket, which is kind of lame, but it is what it is, and we'll take the next opportunity. For me, that's going to be a buy here or a sell there. It's just not my watch list because like I like keep my watch list really small. Oh, honestly, if I enter like 2 of these, I'll probably delete the rest because like 100% focus on 2 pairs for me is easier than like 10 pairs. That's why I'm not even looking at it, and that's why I deleted US CAD too. All right, I'm gonna end it then, and Sean and I are going to send some charts and analysis shortly.